The early 1960s was a period of hope, progress, and positivity in the face of adversity. However, two artists who became icons during this period, Baldwin and Dylan, published works that seemed to, on the surface, not follow the themes of the time. While the country looked forward, both appeared to look back. Despite growing up in different parts of the country, having different upbringings, overcoming different hurdles, excelling at different mediums, and running in different circles, both men developed similar themes that affected their different audiences in similar ways. Ultimately, it's because of their past experiences that they develop similar pessimistic motifs, which are, in the end, meant to motivate their audience. Like stated earlier, both Baldwin and Dylan's works seemed to not follow the 1960s enthusiasm for change, but, upon looking closer, we see that the delivery of their ideas prove how both artists are focused on the future, not the past, explaining why they are the face of the period. One of these similar themes between their works that helps show this is confinement. The black man has functioned in the white man's world as a fixed star, as an immovable pillar, and as he moves out of his place, heaven and earth are shaken to their foundations. Born an African American in 1920s, Baldwin inherited a second-class citizenship. He struggled to deal with how society defined him. Although he never accepted it, he finally realized how true his position was after being left on his back in the streets as a kid, having been mistreated by white police officers. Not only was he confined by prejudice, he was confined by Harlem and its limited opportunities due to that very hate. In his own words, quote, "One did not have to be very bright to realize how little one could do to change one's situation," end quote. After once again recognizing his limited options in Harlem, which include military, drugs, or religion, Baldwin then, quote, fled into the church. However, this choice once again confined him. His father, whose worldview never connected with Baldwin's, was also a preacher, and this choice locked him into a similar path. However, ultimately, Baldwin never agreed with the hypocrisy of the church. As he saw it at the time, quote, "White people are superior to blacks, intrinsically, that is. God decreed it so," end quote. This didn't make sense to him, as Christianity is a religion of love, but turned into one of hate, and religion brings it back around to the root of his confinement, prejudice. Only chance to keep that sensitive part of him alive was to escape the brain-dead confines of the range. Bob Dylan grew up in rural Hibbing, Minnesota, very different setting from Harlem. Despite this difference, both artists were confined by religion. Hibbing was founded by religious immigrants, and, as explained by Bob Spitz and Dylan, a biography, it remained, quote, "parochial," end quote. Each of the religious sects remained tied off from each other, and they all looked upon rock and roll, Dylan's favorite genre as a teen, as sinful by nature. Hibbing, like many towns on the Minnesota range, was known for its iron economy, containing the largest open-pit iron mine in the world. As Spitz explains, iron in the U.S. boomed during World War II, but after the war, the range was, quote, "destined to take its place alongside Cleveland and Pittsburgh," end quote, as a joke. Dylan recognized that relying on a dead economy was futile, and doing so stagnated growth. This stagnant growth made Dylan feel even more stuck, as it made Hibbing provincial by nature. Spitz says that the provinciality made Hibbing, quote, "doomed to looking at the rest of the world with wonder and amazement, without the courage to venture among it themselves." As he was a kid who dreamed of freedom and adventure, this fact confined Dylan. Three different characters represent confinement from Baldwin's past: Eric, Rufus, and Ida. Baldwin uses his past religious confinement to make Eric's story. Eric was raised in rural Alabama, which is known for being radically Christian. Similar to Baldwin, Eric also questions his sexuality throughout the story. However, because of the religious stigma against the LGBTQ community, Eric is exiled from his home in Alabama and is stuck with a label for the extent of the novel. With Eric, Baldwin is showing how religion is used to trap people, keeping them from being freely themselves. For his short time on the earth, Rufus is stuck as a second-class citizen because of prejudice, just as Baldwin was. Even in the safety of his own home, he feels as though he can't escape the hatred towards the color of his skin, and takes it out on Leona. Driven mad by his confinement, racially charged graffiti was his last straw, and his only escape was taking his own life. Just like Rufus, many Americans are trapped in second-class confinement with no way out. Ida and Baldwin faced the same lack of opportunity in Harlem, just in different ways. Ida was a prostitute for old white men before pursuing her career in music. However, in pursuing this path, Ida falls into her old way of selling herself to white men when she gives in to Ellis, symbolizing the lack of opportunity and escape from poverty that many Americans face. Ultimately, all these stories connect to show Baldwin's seemingly pessimistic view on American reality. Dylan's album, The Times They Are Changin', follows the same roots of confinement that he faced in Hibbing. The most clearly influenced song is North Country Blues, which is about a declining mining town. The tone makes the listener feel as though there is no way out, and the lyrics, quote, "They complain in the East that they are paying too high," end quote, represent how little control Americans have over their economic future. With God on Our Side shows how Dylan feels like America is confined by religion, just as he was in Hibbing. In the song, God is used as an excuse for all actions. To Dylan, for Americans to move forward, we must stop using religious excuses to escape our continuation of wrongdoings, as, quote, "You never ask questions when God is on your side," end quote. In the Ballad of Hollis Brown, the family farm is going dry, and Hollis Brown sees no way out. Just like the people in Hibbing who were too provincial and, quote, "without the courage to venture among the rest of the world themselves," end quote, Hollis Brown can't see past his confinement, and to him, the only way out of his misery is to kill himself and his family. Dylan sees that many Americans lack the courage to go out into the world, and, in doing so, they lack the ability to accept or fight for change. Ultimately, accepting the confining realities and themes that Baldwin and Dylan create would make a pessimistic view of the world. However, this was not their goal. To explain why we should not accept the realities each work creates, we must look at the beginning of The Times They Are Changing and the end of Another Country. The Times They Are Changing starts with a song of the same name, creating a theme of hope that should be remembered while listening to every song on the album. So, with this overarching theme, the listeners in the 60s recognize that, as America matures, the reality of confinement will break down. Another Country ends with the same theme of hope. When Eric and Eves finally see each other again in customs, Eric, quote, "looked very much at ease, at home," end quote. He was finally free from his confinement, finally felt comfortable being who he was. Ultimately, it's because of each artist's past that they develop their pessimistic themes, but it's because of their past that they can bring hope, moving America forward.